so here we go. We're going to open up our new season, season 6, with a debate. And so, Ed and George, are you here?
We are.
We're here.
Okay, nice to see you both. Nicole and Sonia, are you both in?
We are.
Yep.
Okay, nice to see you both. So Ed and George are arguing that they agree that we have free will. So taking the opposing view of Professor Sapolsky's book. Um, Ed, who's going first on your side?
That's me.
All right, so we'll kick it off. Ed, your side arguing, yes, we indeed do have free will.
Great. Let's do it. Let's talk about turtles, specifically that charming stack of William James determinism turtles, representing all of the causal steps that lock into place everything we say and do and think. Do these turtles dictate our future? Well, as Dr. Sapolsky agrees, we can't actually see all of them. The determinism we're talking about is one of foregone conclusions, but unknowable foregone conclusions. And there's a big difference. Here's what I mean. If I ask my son to clean the blender after he uses it, I can make a pretty good statistical generalization about what he'll say, which is yes. If I had access to MRI data from his brain, I could make an even better estimate, maybe even before he knows what he'll say himself. But I can't predict the chaotic system of his brain exactly for his entire future. There are some programs, like the universe and the human brain, that you just have to run to know exactly what the output will be. In opposing arguments tonight, you'll probably hear a lot about our increasingly accurate ability to make future predictions based on past events. That's not determinism, it's statistics. Claims about determinism are based on predicting everything your brain does, all of it, and we can't do that. That intuitive worry you have that all your thoughts are predetermined, it's just that, an intuition. Take some comfort that no matter how good the predictive statistics about your brain, your thoughts will ultimately head into their own private and unpredictable world. And let's be practical. When our book club ends this evening, let's pretend that you've been convinced that all of your actions and thoughts are predetermined. Okay, what do you do now? There's this notion in math of reductio ad absurdum, where you prove a theorem by showing that if it wasn't true, the situation would be absurd. Being asked to believe that you don't have free will puts you in a place of behavioral absurdity. Go ahead and try it if you don't believe me. William James himself struggled as a young man with whether he had free will. I've always liked his eventual resolution in his April 30th, 1870 diary entry. My first act of free will shall be to believe in free will. I suggest we join William James, and when the book club is over, you choose to believe in your own free will. Even more important, you should also clean your blender after you use it.
Ed, thank you very much. Nicole, who's going first from your side?
I'll be going first.
All right, over to you.
When you chose to come to this debate tonight, was that really your choice? Right now, as you process my words, your brain made the decision to pay attention 350 milliseconds before you became consciously aware of choosing to listen. Seconds before that, specific neural firing patterns determined your capacity to focus, your mood, your receptiveness to new ideas, all set in motion by factors you never controlled. Hours before this moment, your hormone levels were already set by your genetics and recent environment, determining whether you'd feel alert or drowsy, skeptical or curious about what you're hearing. Years ago, your childhood experiences physically reshaped your neural circuits, building the very pathways that are now processing my argument, seeming to decide whether to accept or reject it. Decades before tonight, your prenatal environment determined whether you develop the neural architecture that craves certainty or one that's comfortable with unsettling truths. Then there's the evolutionary pressure on your ancestors. Your ancestors who survived were those whose brains created the illusion of control, making you genetically predisposed to believe in free will even when presented with evidence against it. This isn't philosophy, it's measurable neuroscience, and it underscores a profound truth. Free will is the most persistent illusion in human experience. Every statement I've presented here tonight was determined by my neural architecture, shaped by factors I never controlled. And if this argument convinces you, that too was determined by our biological history. You don't choose your thoughts, you notice them arriving. You don't choose your preferences, you discover them. Of course, it feels like you're choosing, that you chose to come here tonight. Evolution built
Mhm.
brains that experience decision making as conscious choice because that helps us deliberate. But feeling free doesn't make you free, just like feeling that the earth is stationary doesn't make it motionless. We are nothing more or less than the cumulative biological and environmental luck over which we had no control that has brought us to any moment, including this one tonight.
Nicole, thank you very much. Perfect timing. George, over to you for your rebuttal.
Great. This is really fun. At one point in Determined, Professor Sapolsky writes, quote, "I don't understand what consciousness is, can't define it. I can't understand philosophers writing on it, or neuroscientists for that matter. I submit that consciousness is at the heart of the matter. Consciousness allows us, using material brains, to muse on immaterial matters, including justice, love, and even free will itself. The limitations described so vividly and Determined don't surprise me. The remarkable point is that we humans are nevertheless sometimes capable of high-order reasoning. Since today's neuroscience fails to explain the reality of consciousness, must we therefore conclude that self-awareness itself is also an illusion? I think not. Science is an amazing discipline, but reality should not be distorted to fit within its toolset. As Shakespeare's Hamlet puts it, quote, "There are more things in heaven and earth, Horatio, than are dreamt of in your philosophy. One of these is the moral sense. Who among us does not know that it is better to feed a homeless man than to beat him? And if my neurons somehow know this before I do, I say, good for them." I also ask for some patience. Physicist Michio Kaku observed that the brain is the most complicated object in the known universe. With 100 trillion connections and the nascent state of neuroscience, we should understand the brain has more secrets left to reveal. In conclusion, whatever we profess, we all behave as if free will were real, including Professor Sapolsky. I was struck by his writing of a moral choice he made to assist in the defense of a white supremacist murderer. This decision was not consistent with the author's experience or his upbringing. It was his moral choice. So too, the professor's advocacy of criminal justice reform. So we see in Professor Sapolsky himself that ideas have consequences. Believe in the idea of free will. That belief will make a difference.
George, thank you very much. And to wrap us up, Sonia.
Thank you, Jay. I feel free, therefore I am free. It's not just an intuition, it is the ultimate narcissism. Of all the atoms swirling around through the universe and cosmos, abiding the laws of physics, somehow the ones in your skull are exempt? This belief in free will is humanity's most anthropocentric delusion. You might think, but I experience making choices. But brain scanners show our motor cortex initiating actions up to 10 seconds before we're consciously aware of deciding. Your brain already chose. Your consciousness just receives this memo. And you're not the driver, you're a passenger, convinced you're steering because it flatters your sense of being the protagonist of reality. And what about we need free will for moral responsibility? No, what we need is to abandon the ego boost of moral superiority. Notice how people claim more free will for their successes than their failures? I chose to work hard when they succeed. I had no choice when they fail. It's a self-serving mythology. Maybe people can overcome their nature through willpower, except willpower itself is a biological trait we didn't choose. Our capacity for self-control is determined by prefrontal cortex development, shaped by genetics and childhood stress. Even finding this argument threatening rather than liberating is determined by neural patterns established long before this very moment. Every decision is the product of genetics we didn't choose, experiences that happen to us in a current physiology. That successful person who chose to work hard, their dopamine sensitivity, parental involvement, and breakfast that morning made that choice. And admitting this threatens the comfortable fiction that they've earned their advantage through superior choices. We're not exceptions to the universe's laws, we're expressions of them. And here's what's at stake. Every moment we cling to the fantasy of free will is another moment we punish addiction instead of treating it, imprison poverty instead of preventing it, and congratulate ourselves for advantages we never chose. The universe doesn't care about your ego. The question is, do you care more about feeling special or about actually understanding and improving human behavior? Free will is a luxury belief that only the privileged can afford. Everybody else just pays for it. Thank you.
Oh boy. All right. Ed, Sonia, George, Nicole, thank you all for a wonderful debate. And now it's my great pleasure to welcome to the reading group from Stanford University, Professor Sapolsky.
Well, thanks. First off, I'm immensely intimidated by the previous four speakers who obviously just had these polished downloads, so I'm just winging it here. As a caveat, depending on what direction things go with this, not only don't I understand consciousness, I don't understand the first thing about AI, so I'm useless there. And I guess the third problem is like I'm kind of already convinced. Amazingly, Nicole and Sonia convinced me there's no free will. George and Ed failed to do so. So this feels like somewhat of a tilted playing field. A couple of issues came up. One brought up by Ed towards the beginning is what to do with randomness in the universe, unpredictability of chaotic systems. And what that means is the future, there are multiple possible futures. You cannot predict them. It is formally possible to show that chaoticism makes it impossible to predict the future. So this gets you out of one really crazy making angle of saying there's no free will, which is, oh, were you saying 1 second after the Big Bang, everything about the future was already set in stone? Absolutely not, because of things like chaoticism, unpredictability. But the key thing is unpredictable is a very different thing than undetermined. And when chaoticism's consequences play out and you react to them, the reaction you come up with will have been the outcome of what made you who you are 1 second before, 1 minute before, or so on. Let's see, both George and Sonia and Nicole brought in consciousness. First off, the fact that it terrifies me as a subject, and it terrifies me even more when I try to read neuroscientists studying it because I cannot understand what they're saying. But I think consciousness and the intuition of momentness when you make a decision is a complete red herring because of the following. Suppose you have two circumstances where somebody acts upon things they were brought up with, things that made them who they are, that they have no control over now. First scenario, you have a cop who is in a dangerous situation. There may be a dangerous armed criminal around the corner there, and the person jumps out. And as shown in all sorts of studies, and as shown unfortunately in the real world, that cop has a half second to make a decision. Is the person holding a cell phone or a handgun? And what we know is because of the color of that person's skin, because of other markers of whether they are in group or out group, that will cause a decision in under 1/10 of a second to pull a trigger before there's any conscious awareness. Okay, so it's possible for us to have no free will in examples that we're just reacting reflexively, implicitly. Now, instead, you have a cop who has detained somebody who may or may not be the criminal who just did something, and the cop is questioning them. And because of the cop's upbringing, over which they had no control, the suspect's facial expressions or tone of voice or characteristic dialect of their outgroup status convinces the cop that they are indeed the criminal, and they arrest them. That cop was no freer from all the things that brought him those prejudices, whether implicit or acted upon explicitly. Consciousness is kind of a red herring for the simple reason that even though we can sit and consciously choose chocolate ice cream over vanilla ice cream, and no matter what battles you have as to how many milliseconds before that was detectable on an EEG, all of that's irrelevant because it doesn't address the issue. How did you become the sort of person who would prefer chocolate to vanilla? And that is out of your control.